All right, well, welcome to the first annual USBA podcast. It's been 1 year since the inaugural draft. We're coming up on 1 year. Brett, take me through the last year, the first year of the USBA. Yeah, absolutely. Those of us who have been around since the beginning have definitely seen the evolution from that very first league where we were trying to draft guys and didn't know what their contracts would be, to now where it's really getting to the point where the game has been infiltrated with guys that have come in through the draft or come in naturally through the international free agent or the regular free agent market, and it's really leveled the league and made it really exciting. Now, going forward, Brett, in the next year, in the next 5, 10, 20 seasons, where do you see the league going? Yeah, I think that's awesome. And then the just in the last couple of weeks with adding the Skype and adding the podcast, I definitely can see that going in that direction quickly. Well, let's move over to here what we're here to talk about. This is the 2017 Silver League preview show, and I'm biased, but this could be the most fun division that we've had so far in the USBA in 5 seasons. There's definitely a core of very active managers. You have three of the original four that are left hanging around with myself, Mike, and Brett, and a good chunk of competitive teams. Oh yeah, well yeah, that's true. He's not. He has his own show. So where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the two teams that are exiting the Silver League? We'll go with the teams that got relegated first. Um, Less to say about them and more to say about Buckhead and Atlanta at the end. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing too. The biggest thing that stands out is zero impact talent, and to me that'll be a theme. Where if you when we get to Lone Star, where they at least have something that you can build around. And I don't see that. I mean, that's gonna have to be a total. They're gonna have to scrap that. Let's say they have a high draft pick this year, be able to do something with it. Um, yeah, I mean that's somewhere just totally blow that up and then bounce back in the ML.
I
I
think it
thought,
was Norfolk.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that Mike made a mistake and said that Lone Star went down at the beginning, and then it was really Norfolk.
yep. And there's a case you see the bottom of the SL that the two teams that were truly the worst teams did get relegated. So as I was looking through this, making my predictions for the current Silver League, I broke it into three tiers. At the top, I have five teams that I think that you could really put in any order here. Um, with Atlanta, Buckhead, New Amsterdam, Chicago, and Columbus, and then a second tier behind them with Orlando City, Nova, Philly, and then Montreal with their latest trades, and then Lone Star at the bottom. So I don't know how you want to attack that. No doubt, you can never. I mean, Mike's led the team to a Premier League championship and is obviously very active and knows his stuff on here. You can never count out a team that he's running. Took a very aggressive strategy last year down in the ML and paid off for them. They completely demolished the league, and their strength is that rotation. Um, 1 through 5, very good with double dick on the front end. He was some, yeah. That's where I'm at. But I believe if, as 41, if and I think his contract runs out here the next year, the team option. Um, so this is it for him, and it could be an awesome strategy if he pulls the double promotion with these guys. And this is a constant conversation that's come up in the chat is just a talent from SL to ML, and a lot of people have the feeling that last year wasn't really any different. The ML was just as strong as the SL, and that's something I think we will not see that this year. The SL should be significantly stronger, um, but Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's a product of getting a bigger sample for the league, and I think that's what we'll see going forward, which is a great thing, I think, for the health of the league. Yeah, and then Rocky Mountain's back, right, for for their second stint in the PL. Yeah. They're around 100. I think they're at 97. Yeah, absolutely. And moving on to another good team in that group of five at the top there, um, New Amsterdam, who you referenced earlier. That's been sitting around there for I believe their second season after being going up to the PL and then back down. Yep, yep, and then just got absolutely hammered that first year. Yeah, they have that balance 1 through 5, and they had one of the most interesting signings there with Sellers, who's 41. He'll be 42 and a half. He'll be his year 42 season by the time that starts. Um, but I mean, I understand that they're making the play to go up this year. I mean, it makes it. Yeah, yeah, with all people trying to give away bad contracts and things like that. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's that gamble. I think that there's just too much other talent on that roster, not to try to push all in for the. Yeah, and they were really, I mean, they were looking at that. They were one game out of the coin flip. Yep, absolutely. So to round out the top five before we get to the newcomers, Brad, that's your team, Chicago, the victims of losing two straight coin flip games. Yeah, yeah, that's going to be especially important when we're talking about. I bet that it's going to be 1-2 wins there at the top. I don't see anybody pulling Louisville or even winning by 6 or 7 games like California did this year. I really don't see that happening. Um, yeah, absolutely. And then the rumor was today hit the rumor will that or the rumor mill that Spoon Wilkins may be being shopped around for some turn there. Yeah, absolutely. He was huge that first year when you had bad luck and you lost Pedro right away. That was a heck. Yeah, absolutely. So moving on to the other team that's coming down, Atlanta. In Atlanta, had one of the most exciting eighth place finishes in the history of the Premier League. Started off hot, bought everybody. At one point, they owned every single player in all three leagues, and then sold all of them. It was pretty amazing to get to that point. But it's always fun to watch what they're doing. Well, if you go to their number three, if you go to their number three, he's just a 19-year-old there, and he got a really interesting extension. And he's a high upside guy, could be a stud, and decided to lock him up. Decided to lock him up early through his age 24 season, I believe, doing the math there. So that was that gamble. You could take 3 years of the league minimum. So really only bought out 2 years of ARB there. But he could be an expensive guy coming up. But yeah, so the yeah, absolutely. And the other story with Atlanta to mention is all the draft picks that Reed has. I don't know if any of us get to pick or if he's just running Stats Lab by himself. But that's definitely something to watch for. Is just it, I want to say that he's close to eight. Between Yeah, and I think almost like it might be even be eight firsts. But it's a ton of talent coming through there. Uh, yeah, absolutely. No, the other thing, last thing to note on Atlanta, I think, is getting Suzuki. Um, if he could, I think he's a legit. You want to bring him up, what he is relative to the Silver League. I mean, he's a um, legit
Yeah.
MVP. If you didn't have Neely or Downing, I mean, he's with what he adds defensively, he's a little bit above average. Uh, he's I see him as a solid 4 to 6 win player in the Silver League. It depends what the vesting option is. If you scroll down, oh, he needs 400 plate appearances, so you can manipulate. No doubt. The other, the other relegated club was were the Buckhead Bowties, and crazy up and down season. Really thought that I had a chance to finish mid table. Everything collapsed on me. I had Castillo, who went to Louisville, awful start. Vega, who's now with Brooklyn, awful start on the pen. 70 ERA should be a stud. John Hill, your former and my former shortstop, started off horribly. He went to Atlanta and then to Lexington. Yeah, and the disappointing thing about him is when I picked him up, he was an above average shortstop, and then he completely fell off the radar defensively. I got him on a 1 year deal as a free agent. I kind of stole him. Yeah. So everything fell apart for me, and then decided, yeah, defensively is Derek Jeter essentially. But decide to sell off everybody, but I was able to maintain a pretty solid core um, offensively, where I think that my top five with Lawson, Lopez, Downing, Van Kooten, um, in the Silver League should all be pretty solid guys. Van Kooten hit 330. And defensively, that's going to be a huge improvement. I think I finished 10th in defensive efficiency every season, where I mean, I'll be weak in the outfield defense, but around the infield, there'll be some pretty good gloves. Yeah, and Lawson's a new guy I just called up. Came up just at the end when I was trying to make a push for Detroit. Former first round pick, could do real well. Uh, the problem will be with the rotation. Losing Solis to the career-ending injury was awful. Still frontlined by Henry there. He's a legitimate Golden Ball contender down in the Silver League.
Yeah.
Yeah, just trying to figure out if I can get enough talent on the mound around him to support that offensive course. I mean, I could see myself winning a lot of or losing a lot of 10, 12 games in that area. Yeah, and I'm starting the corpse of Marshall Edwards, who's awful. And had to move Mario Pena back into the rotation. He's really a closer. Spent 2 years in the rotation for me. If you see down there, had a real good 14. If he could even repeat that at the Silver League, it's kind of what I expect. Sub four, log some innings. Obviously, nasty. Yeah. Oh. Yep, that's the plan. I tried a new strategy this year of signing a bunch of relievers with a lot of stamina, and just I might just limit their pitch counts to 70. Kind of have a bunch of relievers log more innings. But playing around with that. Speaking of corpses, moving on from the top five down to Northern Virginia and Don Brown. Yeah. Interesting thing about him, whenever I look at his page, which I do weekly, is is the projection that's still left on him. Because my scout says the same thing. Still says like he's gonna get back to that 12 power at 38. Yeah. It's going to be tough. I mean, you eat some salary, see if you can move him. I mean, he's still a viable player. I look around that roster and I don't see other impact talent to even to break into the top five because of all the teams in the top five. The two that do not go up will still be in good position to contend in 18. So I think that's something you have to blow up and less risk dropping down to the ML. Uh, yeah. Yeah, and that's where we see those levels evening out. Speaking of roster that also doesn't have a ton of impact talent is Philly. If you want to flip down to them, yep, yep, yeah. That's another one of just kind of treading water. Do know that the manager he was in and out of the AIM chat last year. Uh, Fairly active. I saw them in the works with some free agents as well. Speaking of active managers, it looks like Orlando City picked up an experienced OOTP manager with Andy coming in. Now Orlando City is interesting. They were promoted basically on the back of one trade that I made with them. I got their number one pick for Scott Harris, Ueda, an outfielder, and Vatgos and another one. If you click on Scott, then you can see his transaction history. I gave up a bunch of guys that I never thought would pass the bar to play for me. For the strength of to get the number 9 overall pick last year's draft, and I mean it made the difference. It got them up to the Silver League with the That's correct. And one of the free agent pickups, they picked up the third baseman, hitting second for him right now. Yep. Yeah, they picked him up. I think yeah, one year deal, basically to assure that they will not be relegated. I can't see any scenario where they go down. Yep. Now moving on to a team that definitely could go down. Montreal picked up a new manager, a new GM today. Already made some
Yep.
moves. I was late to that part. Ian, do you know anything about the moves they just made?
Well, I know that they made a move with Phoenix, and I know they made a move with Columbus. Let me just check that out.
If you go to, I don't know if you go to the roster, they're one of the sort of the two their two highest guys are their three hitter is out of there now. He's with Phoenix. He's been traded to Phoenix. They're definitely gonna miss that mustache in Canada though. That's another thing to note with them is their number one guy is legit number one in their rotation. Their ace. Yeah, he's I mean, he's done some pretty serious damage. He came up as 20, so he's starting to come into his own. If he was on a PL team, he'd be making his debut this year instead of having been thrown into the fire as a 20-year-old. Um, but still put up some solid seasons. So he could be, he's another Golden Ball candidate in the SL from a team that's going to probably finish near the bottom of the table. Uh, but the talent, get to the talent with Lone Star in the SL, didn't quite perform on Don Brown's level, but still did some dominating last year as their three hitter, Neely there. I think the free agent, that's a pretty reasonable contract. I mean, we're going to see some pretty average pitchers get that type of money this offseason. At at 26, at 26, that's going to take him to his prime. The
Gosh.
Now that's an interesting one to follow. Is do you because they will not be promoted this year. They had to win a playoff last year. Now, do you trade him to get three or four nice pieces for your future? That's yeah, yeah. That's that trade that a PL team makes, especially that battle up there, Boston, Brooklyn, Louisville, Grafton. Yes, he is he's a league changing talent if he would come up. because he has nothing else around him. Yeah, yeah. There's yeah. He had. Yep, absolutely. I mean, I think now with Downing coming down, I think that him and it'll be interesting what him and Downing do for the potential offensive MVPs in the SL this year. And yeah, so to wrap up here now, we got through all 10 teams. Go around for some predictions here as we wrap up. Um, yeah, absolutely.
Um, yeah, sure. Well, personally, Brett, you're gonna like this. I think that this will be Chicago's year to come up and win or get a promotion because it would be so sad if they actually. I mean, if they came in the top three, I would feel so bad. And I also think that Buckhead has a really good shot, and New Amsterdam has a pretty good shot at it too. Um, teams regulated. I'm not really sure who would be regulated because it all really depends. Like as you were saying, those five teams. You can't really like you're not really sure who's gonna do really well and exceed expectations and who's gonna completely flop. It's gonna be an interesting year.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm going to go with a little bit of a dark horse, and I think I'm going to go with Rocky Mountain for promotion. Uh, Rocky Mountain, off the strength of their pitching, number one, they have a really good staff. If their bullpen can get their ERA down just a little bit, especially in their middle relievers, maybe they'll do a little bit better than third. It looked like they had two new players, one at catcher, one at center field. Other than that, their offense is doing pretty well. They've got a pretty good leadoff hitter in Powell. They've got a couple of good hitters scattered along the way. If those new players can hit like they're supposed to and their pitching hangs on and their bullpen improves just a little bit, I'm going to go with Rocky Mountain for a promotion. That's kind of hard. Yeah, I stepped out of the room a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and pass on this one. I'm not enough familiar with the SL to go ahead and prediction it. So
I think the logo change is worth 4 or 5 wins. I think that's going to be the difference. Yes, I don't know who made it, but yeah, they have a new logo.
I think it's the new man,
It followed the name switch. They were it
and
was
also
yes, yep. Yep. It's, yep. I've got New Amsterdam taking it. I just think it's an overall solid roster, taking it by a game. I think we could also see our first ever playoff, an extra game to determine who gets in, who goes to the relegation, and then in 2-3, I've got both Buckhead and Chicago. I think that'll be a coin flip. I think that for the promotional playoff, I think it'll be very, very close. It's going to come down to, for me, how the top five teams play against each other. If if someone can get on a good run, like you said, 108 games, small sample size, you can have some matchups. Absolutely, that's definitely something to look for. Anybody have anything to add before we wrap up?
Nope.
Nope, I'm good, and I appreciate you letting me listen in.
Absolutely. It
Yeah.
was fun for the first time. Absolutely. Appreciate it. We'll see you.
Okay.